Next, on Currents News, pro-life supporters protesting the Reproductive Health Act, a bill that, among other things, will open the door for late-stage abortions in New York.
Preparations for America's biggest anti-abortion rally are underway. I'm Emily Drewby, and coming up, we'll give you an inside look at March for Life.
The battle over the budget in Washington has taken another ugly turn. President Trump and Nancy Pelosi are at it again. Plus, he was laicized years ago, but a former Brooklyn priest is still raising red flags. You can read about it in this week's tablet. All that and more right now on the news. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Pro-life advocates fighting back against New York's Reproductive Health Act. Among the measures, the act makes abortions a fundamental right, even opening up the law for late-term terminations. Today, interfaith leaders come together to lead a protest, and Currents News' Tim Harfman is here with the story. Tim.
Liz, outside City Hall, an emotional show of solidarity for the unborn. Interfaith leaders being the voice for the voiceless, and they're calling on the governor to do the same. Sí a la vida, no a la muerte. Worshippers chanting yes to life, no to death on the steps of City Hall as Governor Andrew Cuomo pushes to expand abortion rights in New York State.
What they're doing is killing lives.
The governor's so-called Reproductive Health Act would write abortion rights into the state constitution. The wording would essentially allow for abortions for any reason during the third trimester of pregnancy, right up to the mother's due date. Leading the interfaith rally this morning, Councilman Reverend Ruben Diaz Sr. of the Bronx.
La ley dice,
the law says,
se puede matar el niño.
You could kill the child after
Díganme
being born.
ustedes si eso no es un asesinato.
Don't tell me if that is not an assassination.
Other worshipers becoming emotional.
Bendición de Dios.
They are a blessing from the Lord. Anyone who says they believe in the Lord and his power can't say that they do not love children.
But Cuomo, who is Catholic, reiterated his agenda at the State of the State Monday.
We should pass a constitutional amendment, not just a Roe v. Wade law, a constitutional amendment. Let's write the rights of Roe v. Wade into the state constitution so it can never be changed.
The bishops of New York are fighting back. The state's Catholic Conference releasing a statement reading in part, "The so-called Reproductive Health Act will expand our state's already radically permissive law by empowering more health practitioners to provide abortion and removing all state restrictions on late-term procedures. With an abortion rate that is already double the national average, New York law is moving in the wrong direction." New York State has one of the highest rates in the country. In New York City, nearly 1 in 3 unborn pregnancies end in abortion. The faithful demand it to end.
God is the one that puts life and takes life away. And once that child is in the mother's womb, it's alive.
With Democrats controlling both houses in the state, the bill is expected to pass by January 22nd, marking the 46th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, and Governor Cuomo has vowed to sign it. To date, an estimated 60 million abortions have taken place in the United States since the 1973 Supreme Court ruling. Liz.
All right, Tim, thank you very much. If you would like to make your voice heard, go to the New York State Catholic Conference's website, nyscatholic.org, and click on Stop Abortion Expansion. The website will allow you to send a message to your local politician urging them to oppose the bill. Our other big story tonight, the March for Life in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of thousands of young pro-life supporters are arriving today, taking part in events leading up to tomorrow's big march. Currents News' Emily Drewby is at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, where the National Prayer Vigil for Life is about to begin. Emily, what can you tell us?
Liz, rain, snow, and a government shutdown will not stop hundreds of thousands of people from coming here to Washington to march. Now, participants tell us it's encouraging to be surrounded by so many other pro-life activists.
But to be here among these people, it's just such a gift. You feel the warmth and the love and the respect for life.
Preparations for the 46th annual March for Life are underway at the National Mall. It might look quiet now, but in less than 24 hours, it will be packed with hundreds of thousands of pro-lifers traveling from across the country for this event.
About 11 hours. We left at midnight last night and tried to sleep on the bus. I think some of us did, but then we changed at a rest stop and we got here about 10:30.
The march marks the anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision in both Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, both of which legalized abortion throughout a woman's pregnancy. Many march participants hope the recent confirmation of conservative Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court could mean big changes for both of those landmark decisions.
In my lifetime, there's never been a better opportunity to see Roe v. Wade overturned. We're ramping up the prayers. God's going to do something great this year.
This year's theme is unique from day one, the idea that pro-life is pro-science, that life begins at fertilization. Leading up to the march, pro-lifers will take place in all kinds of events, conferences, expos, the 2019 Youth Rally and Mass for Life, and the National Prayer Vigil for Life at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Tens of thousands of pilgrims from across the country filtering into the Basilica for the vigil, which starts Thursday and continues into Friday morning.
To go against what people think is the right thing, but it's not. It's killing unborn babies, but they have lives and they matter.
Many say it's encouraging to see such a strong Catholic presence at the march.
I know it encourages all of us to see a Catholic presence at the march. It's really strong here, so it's just really encouraging.
The opening mass is still happening. We'll have a full look at the vigil for you tomorrow. Liz?
Emily, you've had an opportunity to kind of get the lay of the land there. What's the energy like?
Liz, it is so incredible here. I mean, these people sat on buses for hours. It's freezing cold out here, and still they're so happy and they're so honored that they get to be here and that they get to march.
All right, Emily, thank you. Cardinal Donald Wuerl will no longer be celebrating the Mass for Life at the march this weekend after over 300 people signed a petition requesting that he step down. Taking his place will be Archbishop Christophe Pierre, the Apostolic Nuncio to the United States. There had been a growing call for Cardinal Wuerl to step aside following criticism of his response to the allegations of abuse made against his predecessor Theodore McCarrick. Pro-life members of Congress are requesting that President Trump veto any legislation that would weaken the current federal pro-life policies. 169 members of the House of Representatives and 49 senators signed the request in the form of 2 companion letters. House Democrats recently pledged to work to overturn an amendment that prevents taxpayer funding of abortion in most cases. Still ahead on this newscast, Currents News' Michelle Powers talked with one of the speakers at this year's march, Abby Johnson, a former director at Planned Parenthood turned pro-life activist. That's coming up in just a bit. And stay with Currents News for team coverage of Friday's March for Life. Look for Emily Drewby's and Christopher White's reports tomorrow night at 7 o'clock right here on Currents News. Also in the news, Pope Francis's high-stakes anti-abuse summit that meets next month at the Vatican will now include testimonies from survivors who have suffered at the hands of priests. According to the Vatican, Pope Francis has assured that he will be present for the entirety of the summit. A fundamental goal for the Pope is that all bishops who attend the meeting will go back to their diocese and take the necessary steps to prevent abuse and provide care for the victims. More than 2 years ago, Pope Francis began a commission to study the history and possibility of women deacons. The results are in, and members of the commission are speaking about them publicly for the first time. The commission notes that for millennia, women were ordained in such a capacity. They say they have confidence that Pope Francis will make the right call. It's day 27, and there is still no end in sight for the government shutdown. Meanwhile, there's a new battle brewing between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and President Trump over his State of the Union address. Camila Bernal has the latest from Washington.
President Donald Trump is not backing down, and he's continuing to demand a border wall.
We need strong borders. We need strong barriers and walls. Nothing else is going to work. Everyone knows it.
And Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi also standing firm.
The president says the only way to do it is with a wall. That's a debate that we have, but it was no debate that we all agree that protecting our border is a responsibility we have, and that has always been the case.
We want to work.
The fight extending the partial government shutdown, which has left hundreds of thousands without a paycheck.
We've had to make a lot of adjustments. We're considering having to pull my daughter out of daycare. We're trying to stretch out our expenses as long as we can.
But while the shutdown continues, the State of the Union might not. Pelosi asking the president to reschedule.
I'm not denying a platform at all. We're saying let's get a date when government is open. Let's pay the employees. Maybe he thinks it's okay not to pay people who do work. I don't.
The president responding on Thursday with a letter telling the speaker he's canceling an international trip overseas to Brussels, Egypt, and Afghanistan, what he calls a public relations event, and urging Pelosi to negotiate on border security. The letter made no mention of the State of the Union. Camila Bernal, Currents News.
Surveillance video shows a deadly explosion in Nairobi, Kenya on Tuesday. The massive explosion at a hotel complex killing the bomber in the process. It was part of a coordinated attack by armed gunmen who stormed the complex with bombs and guns. Dozens of civilians fled this carnage claimed by the Somali-based terrorist group Al-Shabaab in Nairobi, a standoff that lasted 20 hours, leaving at least 21 dead. Sam Kiley has more from Nairobi.
Go! Trapped by terrorists in a luxury hotel compound.
Run down! Run when you're no!
Gunmen pick off victims.
Come, this is run!
Dozens of civilians flee the carnage claimed by the Somali-based terror group Al-Shabaab. British Special Forces were training Kenyans and rushed to help. But many people were trapped in the Dusit hotel complex, using their phones to call for help.
I got the call. I jumped in a vehicle with two of my friends and work colleagues and went across to 14 Riverside, where we got right to the front of the gate.
How did you get your guys out?
The GSU got into the building we were in and got all of the whole crew in that building out. Everyone was helping everyone.
Rescues went on throughout the 20-hour gun battle, which ended when terrorists were finally killed. In the end, 700 people escaped the complex. At least 21 did not. Sam Kiley, Nairobi.
An American businessman is among the dead in Nairobi. Jason Spindler, who was a survivor of the 9/11 attacks here in New York, lost his life in the hotel compound.
We've been getting phone calls now and texts from all over the world for people that I met even once and we had touched them to such an extent that helped change their lives.
His parents say his work as a business investment advisor is what brought him to Nairobi in the first place. Jason would have turned 41 next week. There's a lot more news headed your way. He's a former Brooklyn priest who was laicized years ago. Up next, details about a tablet in-depth report on Christopher Coleman and what the diocese says you need to know about him. Planned Parenthood employee turned fierce pro-life advocate Abby Johnson joins us to talk about the March for Life. Diocese of Brooklyn students welcoming a special guest to help them celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Time to take a closer look at what's new in this week's tablet. The front page headline is "Laicized Brooklyn Priest Still a Cause for Concern." Editor-in-chief of the tablet and Nuestra Voz, Jorge Dominguez, is here with the details. First, Jorge, let's get right to it. How did the details of this come to light?
Well, Letitia, in November, the Diocese of Brooklyn issued a statement saying that this laicized priest, the person who's not a priest anymore, was, presenting himself as a priest and was a cause of concern for the community.
Now, this gentleman, Christopher Coleman, he was laicized years ago. Why is the diocese concerned now about his actions?
Well, because, he was laicized years ago, and by the way, we did an interview with the chancellor to ask this question: why now? Why is the concern? Sure. And we interviewed several people, and the thing is, he's not a priest anymore. He presents himself as a priest in, in social media, publicly. He is associated with some institutions that also present themselves as Catholic institutions to collect money. They do fundraisings. People give them money thinking that they are Catholic. They are not. So this is, of course, an obvious cause of concern. And we want, it's a painful story, but it's very interesting in the details. And we wanted to go, do a real investigation and explain to people what is going on and why this is, so concerning.
Really quickly, Jorge, in the course of your investigations, I'm sure you've tried to contact Mr. Coleman. Has he responded?
Yes, we contacted him, and he declined an interview with us, but in his response to us, there were little details that were really very telling, and you have to read the article to notice that.
It sounds very compelling. Thank you so much for that report,
Thank you,
Jorge.
Liz.
This article will actually appear first in the printed tablet, which is in the churches in the diocese right now, or in your mailbox with a subscription. Your support for the tablet is needed to ensure that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. If you subscribe to the tablet, you will save up to 55%. Go to the website, thetablet.org/home55, or call 877-883-8356. A special guest spoke to students of Christ the King High School in Middle Village, Queens today.
You can't allow anyone to take away your dignity. Can't allow anyone to question your faith.
New York State Attorney General Letitia James visited the high school during their celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The Catholic high school also gave her a leadership award for breaking barriers as the first woman of color to hold statewide office in New York and the first woman in New York to be elected as Attorney General.
I felt very honored, and I felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that I got to meet someone like her. I got to shake her hand. I got to take a picture with her.
She's an inspiration to me and to people in my community to know that we can be successful and we can make it out and we can grow and take positions of power, and it was a really great experience.
The students also celebrated the civil rights leader by reciting his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. More than 500 students from the Brooklyn Diocese entered the tablet art contest, and the results are in. 12 winners were chosen for their ability to draw how they keep Christ in the Christmas season. The contest is done in collaboration with the Archbishop John Hughes Knights of Columbus Council in Dyker Heights, and to see all the winning art, visit the paper's website, thetablet.org. She is a former Planned Parenthood employee turned pro-life advocate, speaking out about the evils of abortion. Up next, Abby Johnson talks about tomorrow's March for Life in our nation's capital. That's next. And TSA employees working without pay due to the government shutdown getting a special delivery. We'll be right back. At this year's March for Life on the National Mall, one of the main speakers will be a woman condemning the work she used to do every single day. Abby Johnson used to assist with abortions as a clinic director at Planned Parenthood, but she resigned after watching a 13-week baby get aborted. Now she is a fierce pro-life activist. Currents News' Michelle Powers sat down with Abby for an exclusive interview.
Abby, explain to me how you became pro-life, so to speak.
Well, there had been a few things that had taken place during my time with Planned Parenthood in that last year that caused me to really question what we were doing. But ultimately, watching a live ultrasound-guided abortion procedure of a 13-week-old baby in the womb and seeing that baby fight and struggle against the abortion instruments only to end up losing its life, that really caused me to question what I was doing and question the humanity of the unborn. And I realized that I was on the wrong side of this debate. And so I left Planned Parenthood and have been speaking out against their practices and speaking out against abortion and really trying to help bring healing to men and women who have also been affected by abortion.
Right. Ever since that moment, you've been so outspoken about the horrors of abortion. Has Planned Parenthood ever responded to you?
Yeah, when I first left, when they found out that that I was now pro-life, they actually sued me and took me to court, trying to get a permanent gag order against me. So that I wouldn't be able to share my story. Obviously, they lost. You can't sue somebody just because they had a change of heart and became pro-life, and so here we are today. But I don't really hear from them very often anymore. I think they try to just ignore me and ignore what I'm doing. But in the beginning, yes, they were very annoyed with my newfound position.
Now, when you started your work in Planned Parenthood, you started because you said you wanted to help women in need. Is that still your goal as a pro-life activist? And what do you say to those activists who say that you cannot do that if you're pro-life, if you're against abortion?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, you know, I got into Planned Parenthood because I wanted to help women, and ultimately I got out of Planned Parenthood because I realized I was not truly helping women in their most vulnerable time of need. And so now that truly is my goal, by trying to not simply make abortion illegal, but making it unthinkable. And I think that being pro-life and being pro-woman really go hand in hand.
So, Abby, what you're essentially saying is that you could be a feminist and be pro-life at the same time.
Absolutely. I think it's really anti-feminist to tell a woman that she's not strong enough to be a mother. I think it's very anti-feminist to tell a woman that she's essentially too weak to overcome her current circumstances. And so really, and even the early feminists, the first feminists, were pro-life because they recognized that the weakest thing that a woman can do is to separate herself from her biological child in the womb.
And Abby, you are speaking at this year's March for Life rally. You're one of the main speakers. What is the single message that you hope to convey, if it's just one?
You know, I love speaking at the March for Life. It's always a really exciting time, having hundreds of thousands of people there. This year, the March for Life theme is pro-life is pro-science, unique from day one. And so I really want to talk about what that means and why, for me, my faith is an important part of my pro-life journey. But I'm not pro-life just because of my faith. I am pro-life because of science. And so I'm going to talk about that ultrasound that I saw. And I'm going to talk about the humanity of the children in the womb and really convey that to people and help them understand that you don't just have to use your faith to justify your pro-life belief, but that we also have science on our side.
Awesome. Abby, thank you so much, and we'll see you there.
Thank you so much.
And that is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.